What would you say to a quickie? Here's something we see from woos of all kinds, from creationists to statists. There's a concept they're completely unfamiliar with. You make a knockdown argument, and they come up with a rejoinder. But if they're unfamiliar with the concept, where did the rejoinder come from? Example: a creationist is talking to you about abiogenesis and why it's impossible. You ask if he's familiar with the work of Dr. Jack Shostak. He says he isn't, so you explain it to him. He then comes back with some reason why Shostak's experiments are invalid, even though he'd never even heard of him 2 minutes earlier. Or a statist says he has no idea how roads would work in a free society, so you give him an example of how they might work. He then comes back with what he thinks is some knockdown argument showing it's impossible, even though he was completely unfamiliar with the argument 2 minutes ago. What are they doing? They're just taking the first thing that pops into their heads and running with it, without fact-checking, without even so much as thinking about it for a few seconds. If you're unfamiliar with something and someone explains it to you, and you think you have just the perfect response to it, just stop and think about it for 5 minutes. And I mean that literally. Get a clock or use a timer app on your phone or whatever. Set it for 5 minutes and spend that amount of time thinking through it. And I mean really thinking through it, not fantasizing about how the other person will run away crying at your resplendently monumental confutation or anything like that, but actually thinking through the logic. Imagine what it would be like. Consider different possibilities. Even if you aren't willing to do any actual research, it's amazing how far you can get with literally 5 minutes of thought. And if you aren't willing to spend just 5 minutes thinking about something, then ask yourself why it's so important to cling on to that belief to begin with.